Okay. Okay. Let's go with the 301 then. Hey, thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Crazy, crazy. You want me to get crazy? Yeah. Okay. Welcome everyone to the meeting of May 14th, 3 p.m. Start with the land acknowledgement. District of Sechelt located on the traditional and unceded territory of the Sechelt Nation. Respect the histories, language, and culture of the people of the Sechelt Nation whose presence continues to enrich our community. My family appreciates the welcome from the Sechelt and the continuance of. I'm just gonna end there because I was gonna add something else and I'm not going to because it's not as clear as I wanted it to be next time. Okay, council, let's then move into call to order and declaration of conflict. Anybody here looking around? I'll move on then to adoption of the agenda as presented. Councillor Shepherd, Councillor Toth, all in favor of the agenda as presented. Thank you all. Okay, then let's move on to 5.1 business items 2024 audited consolidated financial statements and MNP audit findings. Did you want to speak to this before I ask for council or okay? Bev, well, and before I ask council to just receive the reports, both written and oral, thanks.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm happy to introduce Corey Vanderhorst and Graham Roberts from MNP, who's going to provide us with a presentation for the audited financial statements.
Thank you, Bev. And thank you to council for inviting me here to present you today. Hoping you can hear me okay. Good. Thank you for the thumbs up, Mr. Mayor. Okay, so I do have a short presentation to go through, and then I'd be happy to answer any questions. Before I dive in, a big thank you to the staff in the finance department and throughout the district for working with us again on the audit. We really appreciate their assistance. The audit goes very smoothly. Lots of work to get ready for us, and we really do appreciate that. I will take you through a summary of the financial statements. You've got the full financial statements in your reading package there, but I'll take you through some highlights. A reminder that when we're looking at the financial statements and these annual financial statements, we're doing it on a consolidated basis. So all your funds, general sewer, capital, reserve, and the Sunshine Coast Community Forest, which is recorded on what we call a modified equity basis, so the net investment value. They're all consolidated here and presented as one set of financial statements. When you get reports from staff throughout the year, you might get just the reserve funds or just sewer fund, things like that. But we're bringing it all together at the end of the year. So looking first at your balance sheet or statement of financial position, you can see the district's cash and investments position has increased from $38.6 million to $40 million. Cash and investments and receivables and other financial assets total $48.7 million. Down a little bit year over year. Debt being paid down on schedule of $4.5 million and debt payables and other liabilities of $29.2 million at the end of the year. So if you take those liabilities off of the financial asset number, you get what we call the net financial assets or the liquid position at the end of the 2024 of $19.5 million. Tangible capital assets being managed of $170.5 million. Again, that's the historic cost of all the assets acquired and constructed over time since the inception of the district, and then depreciated to estimate the usage of those assets. And an ending accumulated surplus of just over $190 million. I will get into what's in that number in a future slide. On the statement of operations or the income statement, you can see that total revenues, taxation, user fees, grants, and the like totaled $28 million. The prior year, $36 million also included some significant grant funding. The Growing Communities Fund was a one-time amount provided by the province in 2023. So a decrease in 2024, not unexpected year over year. On the expense side of things, expenses have increased with inflation in various areas from $22.4 million to $23.9 million. However, it's worth noting The total expenses for the year are still under budget. We're under budget. You can see had planned expenses of 27.6 and actuals were 23.9. So you have an accounting surplus at the end of the year of $4.1 million. I say accounting surplus because we like to do lots of adjustments to it to get it to the accrual basis, charging depreciation and moving deferred grants and things around. To unwind all of those accounting adjustments, I like to look at the cash flow statement that tells you what happened in the main, general bank account for 2024. You can see here that regular operations of the district was a cash inflows of $8.2 million. There's $6.8 million of capital spending, net of any proceeds on any disposals that might have happened throughout the year. $25,000 was moved out of investments into the main bank account, and that's also a net balance. So there would have been amounts going into the investments, amounts coming out. At the end of the year, it nets to $25,000 out into the general account. $894,000 of new debt for capital projects and other larger projects, and $839,000 of debt repayment. So at the end of the year, it had a net cash inflow to the main bank account of $1.4 million. I promised I would explain what the total accumulated surplus is of $190 million. And the top number is what we call the equity and tangible capital assets. So that's not a cash balance. That's not funds that you can access. That's the value of the assets that were purchased minus the debt that is still being paid down. So that's the largest balance of accumulated surplus. Then you've got statutory reserves that have increased from 10.8 million to 11.3 million. The investment in the Sunshine Coast Community Forest, as it earns income and as a net profit, you have a $2.4 million investment there. If it provides distributions or dividends up to the district, this number would come down. The general government or the general fund has a surplus of $9.2 million, and the sewer fund has a surplus of 4.9. So that's the breakdown of what's in your accumulated surplus at the end of the year. Shifting gears then out of the numbers and into our audit and our audit process, we are happy to be providing a clean audit opinion or an unqualified opinion. We are satisfied that the financial statements that you have in front of you today are prepared accurately in all material respects in accordance with the appropriate accounting standards for local government, which is the public sector accounting standards. We're ready to sign the report after council approval today, and just a few wrap-up outstanding matters. There's always a few things we have on the final day to wrap up the audit work. When we do our audit and go through the audit process, we do look at controls at the district to ensure you're getting accurate financial reporting. We don't specifically test the whether they're working accurately or effectively, but we do look at how they're designed. Are they safeguarding your risks? They're ensuring you're getting good reporting, and the risk of theft of cash or other assets is low. And then are they implemented in accordance with that design? We don't specifically test if they're working effectively throughout the year. We sample transactions throughout the year to form our audit opinion. We don't look at every transaction. And to do that sampling and drive our audit testing, we use this materiality number of $1.3 million. So that's calculated as a percentage of your annual revenues. We look at every transaction that is larger than 1.3 million. So that's large grants, capital projects, and property taxes. And then below that dollar value, we sample transactions. During the audit this year, we didn't find any irregularities, any unusual transactions, evidences of conflict of interest, or any questionable payments. We're not specifically looking for fraud in the context of a financial statement audit. We're trying to make sure that the financial statement numbers are accurate. But if something came to our attention, I would be required to report it out to council. So I don't have anything to report out today. Again, a big thank you to staff in the finance department and throughout the district for working with us again on the audit. And I will wrap up by confirming independence. So MMP didn't do any other projects or work with the district this year that would impair my ability to give you an independent audit opinion. And that covers throughout the full audit period from January 1st, 2024, all the way through to today. Thank you for taking the time to listen to my presentation. I would be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Vanderhorst. Can I have a motion to accept the report as presented? Councillor Toth, Counselor Rowe, all in favor? Thank you. Any questions, council, of the report in front of us and or the auditor's verbal report? Okay, I'm not seeing any hands up and or other kinds of questions, so it looks like, thank you, Mr. Vanderhorst. I guess that's it. Thought there'd
Thank
be-
you.
But, it's a sign of your expertise, I guess.
Thank you, Counselor.
Counselor Todd.
I will move the recommendation on page 2 that the financial statements be accepted.
Okay. Counselor Rowe, second, all in favor? Okay, great. Okay, so that business item 5.2 is done. Let's move on then to 5.1, sorry, is done. 5.2, let's move on to that, the official community plan updates and framework. Mr. Pearson, you're obviously presenting in reference to this report, then speaking to, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm here today to summarize the report on item 5.2 on your agenda today, which is an update to the official community plan review, the community land development analysis, otherwise known as the CLDA, some project considerations with those two projects, and presenting a OCP framework that staff believe would be helpful for us to proceed with actually writing the OCP document, because we are getting to that point where we can actually start putting pen to paper. So the presentation I have is quite short relative to the report. Just a few background notes. Both of these projects commenced about 1 year ago. It was May 2024 when we started the OCP review kickoff with a report to council. And that coincided with the grant we received from UBCM for $200,000. $100,000 was received right away for that around June of last year. And with that, we went out for requests for proposals for project consultant. We chose Dialogue Design Limited. And the project really did not get underway until January of this year. So it has been going quite well. We do have our community or our project partners quite involved with this. The Sunshine Coast Regional District being one, and Shishal Nation the other, and other partners that we have reached out to are standard government agencies involved with OCP reviews, such as the Agricultural Land Commission. They have a big stake in an OCP. Vancouver Coastal Health, we've been recently meeting with them about healthy communities initiatives and trying to come up with ideas for how we can integrate healthy communities policies into our new OCP. You might recall that the CLDA project has certain parameters that we have to follow to be eligible for the grant funding. And we have to devise this analysis in the context of 4 lenses: housing, infrastructure, transportation, and daily needs. And we felt that those 4 themes coincide quite well with many of the policy content of an OCP, including the existing OCP in effect now. I'll speak more about the content of an OCP as we move on this presentation. You were brought up to speed just last month about how the amendment to the community plan to increase floor area ratios and building heights was consistent with the new provincial legislation of Bill 44. So that's a big check mark that we can consider with the new OCP. It's work that we don't necessarily have to do, and it's probably quite a bit of work. There's other residential policies too that the framework speaks to for residential. So we're not completely out of the woods with residential policies. We have to consider affordable housing, rental housing, and special needs housing policies. That's a requirement too. The CLDA draft could be presented to council next month. The consultant is working on wrapping up the report, and it is due to UBCM in July. We got an extension for 3 months on that, which was nice. For this report, the recommendation on page 1 of the staff report is for council to endorse the OCP framework that's attached as attachment 1. I hope you have all had a chance to look over that framework in detail. If not, I can help you drill in on some of those squares in the grid. We're also looking for direction on future engagement with the Advisory Planning Committee and our community associations. Also, the possibility of forming a OCP review select committee. The select committee is a committee that is geared towards a specific purpose, such as an OCP review. Next slide. Let's see if this works. Yes. So for project engagement so far, we've notified over 30 community groups, including all the community associations, of 2 workshops that have been held at Seaside Center. Both of those were fairly well attended. 80 attendees at one, 50 at another. A lot of input was received and compiled and summarized and posted onto our website. There were definitely members from community associations attending those, no question. And also citizens at large too, people interested in the OCP review process. It was encouraging. The project web page that we have has been activated since late last year. It's been available for comment, for questions, for input, and that remains in effect. The contract with Dialogue Design includes 2 additional and comprehensive public engagement sessions shown on the diagram there. So we can check off phase 1 and phase 2 that I just mentioned. Phase 3 and phase 4 scenarios and survey are intended for the summer and the fall. And with that, with the completion of the CLDA, we can actually start on the OCP draft. Project considerations. As I mentioned, we have interest from our Advisory Planning Committee, Standing Committee, on being involved in the OCP review. And we think that we can fit the monthly meetings in with the program and our OCP review, basically looking at the topics that we have identified in the framework and drilling down into those topics. There has also been interest from some community association members in participating more thoroughly in the OCP review process. And again, as I mentioned previously, it would be really helpful to hear from you on your thoughts and direction on engaging with those community associations, the Advisory Planning Committee, or some other means that you might have in mind. Project funding, just to give you an update. So I mentioned we received $100,000 last year about this time. The second installment, another $100,000, would be granted to us upon completion and approval of the CLDA by UBCM. With that, we would continue the contract with Dialogue to draft the OCP. For timing, if everything goes tickety-boo and there's not a lot of stalls or things out of our control or things we haven't thought of, the draft could potentially be done by the end of this year. That's under the current scope and contract that we have with Dialogue. So now with those 4 slides done, Jen, if we could summon the attachment 1 matrix, please. There it is. I can't really read it from here, but I can read it from here. So the framework is, it's not unlike the current OCP in terms of the sections and the way it's drawn up. Standard sections found in most OCPs in British Columbia. There's required content of an OCP, and those sections are noted. And there's optional content. And then there's just standard content that you'll find in an OCP, such as community context, introductions, a little bit of history, keeping in mind that an OCP at the end of the day is a policy document with goals and objectives for land development and land use. That's really what it boils down to. I don't really want to cherry pick any of these sections. They're all thought out, and my ideas and our ideas are contained within the comments. Andrew's helped me a lot with this, and we believe this is a good framework to move forward. So if you have any questions, I'm right here.
Okay, thank you. Tickety-boo, that was my university laundromat when I went to school. So council, let's have a motion to receive both written and verbal reports. Thanks, Councilor Shepherd. All in favor of receiving both reports? I just have before we go to general questions from council, I have a financial question for maybe yourself or maybe financial staff. It mentions in your financial piece to your presentation that there's 100,000 and 100,000 is budgeted, but then 100,000 will come at the end of the project. Do we know what our net actual budget costs of this project is at the end of project then with with us budgeting 100 and then 100 coming back once it's done?
I'll try to answer that,
Okay.
Mr. Chair. I believe that we could have a draft of the OCP completed by the end of this year on the current contract and timeline that I mentioned earlier for the $200,000. If we go beyond the scope of that in terms of needing more engagement opportunities and whatever you may think, we might have to utilize some of the other funds that I mentioned.
That are District of Sechelt funds as opposed to grant funds.
Director Allen may have some comments on that.
Okay.
That's correct. So we did have $100,000 from the initial grant. When we get the CLDA done, we'll get the next 100 grand. But the third 100 grand, while our funds are not a grant per se, is money that we received from the province for capacity funding for the rollout of Bill 44. So it's conditional use. It has to be for modernizing and updating our policies respecting housing, what OCP or amenity cost charge bylaw that will accompany the development cost charge bylaw, et cetera. But we have to be able to justify and tie it back to our adoption and implementation of updated provincial legislation as it relates to housing.
Which is what this process will be doing.
Correct. But we have to be careful and intentional to ensure that we can justify that it relates to housing, which an OCP does, of course, but an OCP can be broader than just housing. But so we have to be very careful about that.
Okay, so we're trusting you to then, to meet those guidelines in order to have this zero cost to the district to implement this plan.
That's what we're striving for. And yes, you are trusting me and I
Okay,
thank you for your trust.
Yeah.
And we'll do my best.
yeah,
Mhm.
good, good.
Yeah.
Because I thought it was gonna cost us more, so that means that we'll be in a sense of surplus situation, because you won't most likely need the 100,000 is what I'm hearing.
Well, that's to be determined if,
Yeah.
because the contract we have with Dialogue now enables 2 more engagement events
Okay,
out of a total of 4 if you include the CLDA. We recognize that that's not enough. We do, right?
okay,
So we need that money, the additional 100,000 access to it for engagement, for the OCP review, connecting it to modernizing our policies respecting housing. So it's all connecting the dots.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I hope you can do it for 200 and engage the public. That's just me.
Yeah,
Because
I
I'm-
appreciate the comment.
We
Fair
need to
question.
save some money if we can. Over here, Counselor Shepherd?
Yeah, just to follow on through the point through the chair, I just want, if I could confirm, the CLDA is expected to be completed by the end of this year. No. Sorry, then CLDA completed by,
In the next few weeks, by
Okay.
July, end of June.
end of June, and I think in an aggressive guess on timelines, I think what planning is saying is an expectation that the OCP could be completed by the end of this year. Is that,
That's correct. That's an aggressive timeline.
yeah,
That's under the assumption that we have an OCP that's in place. There's a lot of good content in it, but it has duplications, it has dated population and demographic information, and it's renovating and refreshing that plan. If we want to say we're back at square zero, we're creating a new vision, a new plan for Sea Shield, that will, in theory, take us beyond the term of this council and into next. So that's kind of, we're at a bit of a point of decision there.
okay.
And- Sorry.
No, that's great. Thank you. That helps solidify the sort of timelines. I'm guessing for my own part that that's a fairly aggressive timeline to expect for the whole process to be finished by the end of this year. So, yeah, you know, in terms of planning's question to council, yeah, I'm very supportive of setting up I can't believe I'm saying this, but yet another advisory board or committee, but it's worth it, the OCP. It's an important document. So I'm supportive of that. The planning department's suggestion of involving the APC into this process, I'm absolutely supportive of that as well. We have a lot of really talented people on that committee, so we should be making use of that skill. Yeah, I'll leave it that for now. Thanks.
Any other comments on the OCP then from Counselor? Counselor McLaughlin?
Yes, thank you through the chair. I don't really see in the report highlighting council's priorities. There's like 6 of them. And there's just a little summary of the strategic plan. So I think it would be worthwhile to take a harder look at those, and as it's part of it is our strategic plan, and it's a new one, that you try and incorporate that more directly so that we can see outcomes coming from our strategic plan. And I also had a question about the scenarios that are mentioned there. What's that about? I'm not too sure. And also just a caution, when you do a report, if you do a draft, well, then you get feedback, then you have to do another draft. And it takes a while. Like, things cost maybe sometimes twice what you expect in the end, because you also then have to desktop publish it and produce it and polish it up. And that all takes money in the end. So something to maybe consider in your budgeting. Thank you.
Yeah, I think, I'm not, you know, in asking that question, I'm not going to give the staff an excuse to spend more money, but I look forward to the document. Any other questions? Yeah, okay. Was staff prepared to answer those questions? I thought it was just suggestions. Yeah. Yeah, okay.
Yes, through you, thanks, Councillor McLaughlin. Appreciate your points. And the council strategic plan for 2023 to 2026 is definitely being considered for the new OCP. The consultant has a copy of the plan, among many other plans, including the ISCMP, the Integrated Sustainability Community Plan, among others, the Transportation Master Plan, the Sewer Master Plan, which are almost completed. But council's strategic plan, and yes, it does go beyond just housing. It talks about environmental sustainability and other matters too. So I agree with you, and it will be considered. Oh, scenario development, sorry. Scenario development is basically taking the findings of the CLDA, the analysis for those 4 themes, and modeling out scenarios for growth. For example, the extent of our urban containment boundary. We will be looking at that closely, and that is a very important part of the OCP review. Where will the urban containment boundary be? The divide between basically the built environment and the rural lands. So that the scenario analysis and development will consider that.
Were the points covered? Were your questions covered? Okay. Yeah, I know that Mr. Pearson is dealing with this report, but I thought maybe Director Allen would have more to say on the priority council, priority plan alignment. Yeah.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. It's key. We're recognizing the hierarchy of documents and policies that start with the council strategic plan, and the council strategic plan supports developing the OCP. It supports community safety. It supports housing. All of these things will be forming a part of the foundation, the backbone, if you will, of the OCP, and absolutely will keep that as our top priority.
Okay.
Now, if I may, just to clarify, I think best case scenario under an aggressive timeline is to have a draft by the end of the year, but that still requires significant amount of time for referrals, information, meetings, sharing changes, documenting changes. And thinking about this council group, this term, putting us in a position to potentially by this time next year, next June, having a public hearing. That's still an aggressive timeline. These things, as everyone in the room knows, take time, but it's not so much project completion by December and done. It's just getting something that we can say, okay, look, we have a potential OCP here, right? So it will take time. I just wanted to say it's not something we're trying to do hastily or in a rush.
Councillor Toth.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to chime in that, recognizing an OCP update, recognizing community safety, environment are important items from our strategic plan. I actually don't want too much of our strategic plan influencing this document too heavily, because I don't want the next council to say, well, we want our strategic plan recognized in there, so now we have to do an OCP update just to incorporate a strategic plan. So I look forward to the process unwinding. I have full faith in staff. I actually lean towards staying light on the political interference in the document, so to speak. Thanks.
Your challenge, Director Allen, trying to match the various opinions of council. Any other questions? Councillor Shepherd.
Not a question, Chair, is more of a sort of observation that circling around, because I'm very slow, to my point about timing, it seems clear that this process will probably roll through to the next council. Because if we're talking about a public hearing by June next year, again, as an aggressive timeline, then it's not going to be finished during the term of this council. It's just observation.
Okay. Okay. Any other thoughts then? If we're past questions, then to thoughts on this, quite a good document for the DOS going forward.
Take that.
Sure.
Take that as a nod. Thank you, Chair. Just note the prescriptive, use of community associations. I hope that that actually encompasses all, not just the actual community associations, but the STBA, the chamber. I'd like to see us make sure we do get formal input from the development community. You know, these are the folks that we're counting on to build whatever we need. And so not just to leave it to have your say or your say Seashell forum, but actually make a proactive effort to get the input from the broader community. Thank you, Chair.
So you're hearing in that statement, the broader community that may hopefully include the people that construct things in our community. Yeah. Any other comments or questions? Counselor Top?
Thank you. My apologies. I'm trying to find reference in the report to the select committee. Is that something that staff are looking for us to make a motion on today, or is it just sort of being brought up for awareness and for decision later? And I'm wondering if staff can speak a little bit more to what they would sort of see within the terms of reference of this committee, or how they would engage with the plan. Thanks.
Okay, so once again, Director Allen, coming to you on this, just to, as to your and your staff's approach to some big questions, thanks.
Yeah, it is a challenge. It's the traditional model for developing an OCP. We say, okay, we want a committee for this OCP. But I think what we're saying is, like, we have this advisory planning commission. They want to be involved. There's a wide variety of individuals and backgrounds and professional backgrounds. Can they be the committee? Can we do issue papers, six issue papers on various topics, send them to the committee, send them to all of our community associations, including SDBA, Chamber, et cetera. We have 30 plus. Or do we want to have a series of meetings on these issues and say, come one, come all? Or do you want to have an engagement group separate from all of that with some overlap, presumably that's just for us? So we can follow up with an engagement plan for council to chew on. It's just that there's a number of avenues to go. And some of the, starting from, okay, let's advertise, let's get do terms of reference for a select committee, let's advertise, bring it back to council to appoint that group. I think that's council willing, that's almost a foregone conclusion. We're into the next council term if we're going to do that route. And that's for council, this council to give us direction. But we can do another version of that where we're saying, look, we have an OCP. We just want some help on modernizing it, refreshing it, making it better. And here's what we think are the topics, and give us advice that we can use as we draft. But I don't want to put something that will be hasty and make council and the community uncomfortable as well. So I think we need to find that right fit.
Yeah, thanks. My caveat to it going forward and taking a number of years to complete is that it becomes, this council in a sense has created some election issues, and we don't necessarily want those. Any other questions or comments? Councilor Shepherd. Thank you.
I certainly would want the planning department's advice on an engagement program, if you will. That would be really interesting. Also a listing of all of the groups. But I think their advice would be valuable for everyone to consider.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is Director Allen said that's what they may do, and you're saying as one council member that you think that would be great. Okay, what do you need from us though, in terms of that list and the people that you'd like to be involved in the process? What do you want from this committee to go forward?
A council resolution indicating that staff report back with an engagement plan indicating options and demonstrating who our community partners to date are.
Okay. Moved. Okay.
Basically what I wrote here.
Okay. Okay. Okay, Mayor Henderson, seconds that then. Any discussion of that proposal put forward by staff?
I'm just a little unclear if we could get some comments from the staff. with their best practices. Is this updating the existing OCP, or are we going to try to do a new OCP? Because I think depending on which way you go, you might have a totally different engagement process. So I think it's important that we kind of figure that out first. Let's get some comments on that from staff.
No, that's a great question. I think it's a new OCP. It'll have a new bylaw number. It's going to be the new Sechelt OCP, but I think that some things are largely baked in where we have our industrial areas, where we have our residential areas, but it needs an update and a refresh, and we have a new reality now with expectations from the province. But I think, and we can refine and create a new vision through help with our engagement partners. But I think ultimately, so maybe if anything, it's a bit of a hybrid. It's a new OCP, but we have a solid foundation already from the one that's been in place for 12 years. And we're doing our community land development analysis, and we'll marry that together to create the updated version. If that's clear.
Okay. Any other thoughts or comments?
Just, I think, a reminder that updates to the OCP can be done every 5 years. Not that you're going to redo a whole OCP, but just because we have some priorities now, that doesn't mean that it's going to be, you know, binding horribly for the next 25 years. Thanks.
If I may, and that's a good point. What has changed, one of the criteria that's changed through Bill 44 is previously we had to have housing policies to ensure there was housing for 5 years. Now they're actually saying you need to update your plan every 5 years. So part of the modernizing and refreshing is creating a plan that can be rationally reviewed every 5 years without needing 300 or 500,000 every 5 years. We have a new plan, and we're going to update Chapter 2 residential. We're going to update Chapter 3 development permit areas every 5 years to ensure that we can keep up with the Local Government Act and the housing needs assessments and make it starting from a new baseline. And that's part of the key of this project. The OCP we have now, we have a PDF version. We don't really have a neat Microsoft Word version that we can easily add and amend, and we need to kind of get this new base layer of an OCP that we can build upon in the future. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Director Allen. One of the, I know that anybody that was here many years ago knows that the OCPs were done by neighborhood many years ago, and those documents were, then they were combined into one larger OCP that we did in the 2008, 9, 10, 11 process based on a visioning plan. So that's when it all came together. But we used to do it by neighborhood based on the cost and changes. As I've said before, downtown and West Sechelt would be important areas for me to take a good look at going forward in terms of our OCP changes. That's 2 of 8 neighborhoods as we define them, but it's not necessarily geographically, 25% of the district. It's probably 50% of the district would be those 2 areas. And obviously Davis Bay, Selma Park is limited by sewage treatment and Chapman Creek. So there's those issues. Any other thoughts on this? Yes.
Thanks, through the chair. Yeah, that's an interesting point. I think the history of Sechelt being just first the village and then being incorporated in 1986 with the more rural areas, Davis Bay, Sechelt, or Selma Park, et cetera, it's really critical to the whole organization and the whole attitude of the community associations and how they see themselves. So, but I did ask the consultant about the neighborhoods, and she said that the OCP will not be based at all on neighborhoods. So that is a point I would like some clarification on, because I'd hate to see them kind of ignored in terms of planning and the OCP. It's actually an opportunity to relook at the infrastructure there and enrich the communities with some planning. Because I looked at some of the old neighborhood plans and they're really basic and haven't ever been updated for the most part. Some of them don't even exist for some communities. So it's, I think, something we should discuss, but, and it might affect the engagement approach as well. If you're going to have a focus on community-based issues, then you want community-based input in terms of your whole approach to everything, honestly. So And again, especially I live in the village area is really critical. Is it going to be looked at as a place that is a neighborhood? Or is it going to be looked as becoming just a utility corridor? Where the people there are just going to have to live in flux and there's other issues going on? Is it going to be where all the medical, services are going to be? Or are we going to perhaps have some medical clinics in neighborhoods, which moving forward with a older population, it's not really something we considered, but it just seems to me that it's an idea that's come to my mind that maybe we need to plan for the population that seems to be here, and also what we project the future to be. Apparently, there's a lot of remote workers here now. So how do we build neighborhoods and communities that support that? So I hate to see us just get into talking to the advisory planning commission folks, because they're great people, but they don't really have OCP experience either. So I really want to make sure that the planning department really steers this carefully and takes into account these important issues. And
Okay.
environmental especially, which I won't even get into. Thanks.
Well, I think that Director Allen knows that has to be a component, or he'll have at least two council members complaining on the environmental issues. And council, council's not OCP experts either. So nevertheless, the report is coming forward whenever with those suggestions of how you will proceed next.
You got a
Yeah.
motion on the floor, right?
Yeah.
guys?
So yeah, let's vote on that then to get that done, because it looks like council would like that report to come forward. All in favor of the motion that's put in front of us? Thank you. Good luck. Just remember, the West Sea Shelter is not the West End, just with the density proposals we're seeing. Thanks. Okay, Councillor Toth.
And just to actually wrap up the item that's on our agenda, I'll move the recommendation on page 59.
Which was next? Which was next, Chair? Okay, let's introduce that first and second. Okay. All in favor of that? Okay, thanks. We're coming to the end of the agenda as presented. I'll look for a motion to adjourn. Councillor Rowe, Councillor Toth, all in favor of adjournment. Thank you. Any questions? Did you want to come up to the mic then, or? Yeah.